Stephen Collins Foster was born July 4th, 1826, on a hill overlooking the Allegheny River in Lawrenceville, Pennsylvania, just east of Pittsburgh. He was the youngest surviving son of William and Eliza Foster. Not much is known about Foster's early childhood. We do know that he was raised in a middle-class family, and then many of his childhood friends came from some of Pittsburgh's wealthiest families. We also know that he was well educated for his time, attending 5 different private academies during his adolescence. Finally, we also know that music was an important part of Stephen Foster's early life. Throughout his teen years, he and his friends met regularly at the Foster home on Sunday afternoons for weekly singing parties. Early on, Stephen Foster was greatly influenced by 2 different men. One was Henry Kleber, a former music instructor from Germany who owned a music store there in Pittsburgh. The other was Dan Rice, a local entertainer who made his living playing parlor and minstrel music. Later on in his career, Stephen Foster would blend the 2 styles into his own unique arrangements. Stephen Foster wrote his first song when he was only 14 years old, a song that he called Tioga Waltz. He performed the song during the 1841 commencement exercises there at the Athens Academy where he attended. By the time Stephen Foster was 18 years old, he had published his first song. It was a song that he called Open Thy Lattice, Love. When Stephen Foster was 18 years old, he published his first song, a song that he called Open Thy Lattice, Love. He also moved to Cincinnati, Ohio that summer and took a job as a bookkeeper with his older brother's steamship company. 20 miles downstream from the steamship company was an infamous racetrack called the Camptown Races. The racetrack was a favorite of Stephen Foster, and he later memorialized the racetrack with his classic song, The Camptown Races. While in Cincinnati, Stephen Foster also wrote his most successful song. The song was called Oh Susanna, and it became the unofficial anthem for the California Gold Rush in 1849. During the 1850s, the song sold over 100,000 copies of sheet music, a feat unheard of at the time. Unfortunately, there were a few copyright laws at the time, and Stephen Foster received little in the way of royalties. In 1849, Stephen Foster published his first album of songs. The album was called Ethiopian Melodies, and it was a collection of Negro spiritual songs. Also in 1849, he met and married his first wife, Jane Denny McDowell from Pittsburgh. The couple had their one and only daughter the following year. In 1850, Stephen Foster returned to Pittsburgh and signed his first music contract. The contract was with the Christie Minstrels, and Foster was hired to write songs for the group. It was during this period that Foster wrote most of his best-known songs, including Swanee River, My Old Kentucky Home, and Jenny with the Light Brown Hair. Although Stephen Foster was from the North, many of his songs had Southern themes. Many of his songs were of the black-faced minstrel show tradition popular at the time. Throughout the mid-1800s, Stephen Foster struggled to make a living as a professional songwriter, a task made difficult since this field did not exist at the time. In 1860, Foster moved to New York City to seek his fortune and fame in the Big Apple. A year later, his wife left him and returned with their daughter to Pennsylvania. Afterwards, his fortunes soon decreased, as did the quality of his new songs. In 1863, he began working with George Cooper, who wrote songs for music theaters. During this time, Foster composed his last works, a series of Sunday school hymns. Foster spent his last years living in poverty in a cheap hotel on Manhattan's Lower East Side. One day he caught a fever and was confined to his bed for the next week. On January the 10th, 1864, Foster fell from his bed against the wash basin, gouging his head. In an hour before transfusions and antibiotics, he succumbed 3 days after his admittance at the age of 37. On the day of his death, he had but 38 cents to his name. His body was returned to Pennsylvania, where he was later buried in the Allegheny Cemetery there in Pittsburgh. Throughout the years, history has been quite kind to Stephen Foster. He's honored at the University of Pittsburgh with the Stephen Foster Memorial and the Stephen Foster Museum. There are 2 state parks named in his honor, one in Georgia and the other in Florida. His birthday on January 13th has been officially designated as Stephen Foster Day in America by an act of Congress. He's a member of both the Songwriters Hall of Fame and the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame. His song, My Old Kentucky Home, is the official state song of Kentucky. His song, Old Folks at Home, is the official state song of Florida. His songs continue to be recorded today, more than 150 years after his death. In 2005, the album Beautiful Dreamer was a Grammy for Best Traditional Folk Album. And Hollywood has made numerous movies about his life story, and he has his own U.S. postage stamp. Join us now as we explore the music of Stephen Foster, America's first real musician.